Welcome to Four Favorites, brought to you by the Quiet on Set podcast. I'm going to be your host today. My name's Lachlan Thiele, and today I am joined by my co-host. Oh, God.
Brrr.
Woo! And I'm going to be your host today. My name's Lachlan Thiele. I am one of the co-hosts of the Quiet on Set podcast, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Yes.
Ewan Graf. How you doing, man?
How you doing? I'm the lesser half of the Quiet on Set podcast. You're the better half. So rolls out.
Well, I would say you're the first half
Right,
because
okay.
this is going to be the last episode in this series, I believe.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
are you gonna post the one that you did of me, or is that just the trial?
No, that was just a
episode?
trial. No one wants to hear about your four favorites. No, yours is actually
Okay,
the
so
one
my
that's
four
kicking
favorites
off
don't
the
exist.
series
Okay.
off. Yours is the
Sick.
one that
So I
kicks
was
off.
the
This
se-
is
okay.
closing ceremonies for this first initial four favorites. Yeah.
Excellent. This is just the end of a series because
Mhm.
we've had a number of guests on, which is very exciting. You pretty much hosted the majority of them.
Yes.
Just because there's a bit of a delay between Ewan and I. I'm in Australia, Ewan's in Switzerland. It'd be kind of awkward to have another delay of
Yeah.
a person in another country in some cases. And
Mhm.
it could just get really messy. So Ewan invited me to round out this season's finale of Four Favorites, which has been a bit of a, I wouldn't say season, but just little mini series of horror favorites. It's all
Yes.
about horror. Each month, we kind of switch themes and genres, and we talk about different topics, and we have
Mhm.
guests on talking about their favorite films, or specifically their four favorite films in that said theme, genre, or other topic. This month being the spooky season of October, we
Yes.
decided to talk about horror. What's your relationship with horror movies?
We've been on an on and off relationship, I think, for a couple of years. I've been a connoisseur, maybe, of some of the popular genres, and I'm not someone who seeks out a lot of horror films. And I've also been not a completionist with any of the franchises. I usually just go by the most critical and most popular. Critically acclaimed and most popular one, which is usually the first one in the most series, and then I just kind of
Yep.
stop myself from going further down the rabbit hole. But I like the genre. None of them are probably in like my top 10 favorites of all time. So that's my relationship with it. I respect it. I like it, but it's not my favorite genre by a long shot.
By a long shot. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously, you said that you wouldn't seek out a horror film. So I
It seeks me.
pitch this question to you. My friend.
Yeah.
You either have to pick the latest MCU movie or the latest. Let's just say, what's a very popular? Let's go Annabelle or Paranormal Activity.
Right.
Which one do you go see? Would you go see the latest MCU or would you go watch the latest Paranormal Activity?
I'd go with MCU. Pretty sure that I'd go with that. Yeah.
And that's the biggest praise Ewan's ever going to give to the MCU, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are listening right now, make sure you drop your four favorite films in the comments below. Since I was kicking off this season, I'll give you a quick rerun of my favorite horror films. That was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, It Comes at Night, Alien, and Annihilation. Those were my four favorite horror films. You can go back and watch the first episode if you want to hear my thoughts on those, or at least our discussion on those. This is the point of the show where we open the floor to our guests, so I'm going to open it up to you. Did you
Yeah.
have any honorable mentions you wanted to get out of the way before we jump into what you would consider your four favorite horror films?
Yes, certainly. I mean, you just mentioned two of the films that had a shot of making it onto my list that were on yours. That's why I didn't repeat them here and went with into a different direction. But for me, Alien this really deserves that spot. It's an amazing film.
Phenomenal.
And same goes for the original, the Chainsaw Massacre. Also, one of the greatest slashers to ever be made. I think the recent two films from Ari Aster, Midsommar and Hereditary, really changed the game for new coming horror directors and what I guess the level of filmmaking that they have to bring to be a rising talent coming through horror he just really elevated horror in that way. That's kind of the the term that's been associated with him a lot, and that not really liked term sometimes by certain horror genre enthusiasts, but it is really elevated horror that I quite enjoy. Maybe something else, more recent film, Get Out, as well as Nope, but I'd say more Get Out because it's straight up horror. Really works well for me. One of the greatest films lately that's been made. I don't have, no, I do have one film in that genre on my list, but I think there's a lot of great zombie horror flicks out there. One of them that's more humorous, Shaun of the Dead, is one of my favorite films from Edgar Wright, as well as the action film Train to Busan, which is more of an action horror film. Works really great. And then one last classic, the Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, because I'm that bitch. I'm gonna mention
Yep.
something from the Hitchcock, of course, when we talk about horror. But yeah, that's my honorable mentions. Long list of honorable mentions.
Oh no, as you can see, Ewan has quite a variety of horror films in his honorable mentions. You've got some
Yeah.
pretty modern classic horror films that are just paving the way for Ari Aster's career. And funnily enough, horror is a
Mhm.
very interesting genre because a lot of people had their start. A great example is James Wan.
Yeah.
Saw did he do Paranormal Activity? I can't remember now. He did one of the Paranormal Activity. No, not
Right.
Paranormal Activity. Insidious
Ah,
movies,
Insidious.
I
Yeah.
believe.
Right.
They all form into one little being, Insidious, and then it's like
And
The
Conjuring.
Conjuring and
Yeah.
Annabelle. They all become the same movie for me since they're pretty much all the same. But you've got a great variety in your honorable mentions: comedy, classics.
Yeah.
Get Out is one of the most really excellent horror films that just everyone beloved, especially as an elevated horror film. But
Yeah.
enough said about your honorable mentions. Let's get into your number one, your first favorite on the list, Ewan.
Yes, it's John Carpenter's The Thing. The remake is of a film, I think from the 60s or something like that. Interesting to have like a remake on here that feels like it's an original. The film is from
Mm.
1982 and about these, I guess, isolated group of men that are haunted by something that has infected them. And I think this movie is just so incredibly effective in the story that it's telling, that keeps you on the edge and guessing who the person is. I think if you like a film like Alien, it's similar to that film but more grounded. Where I guess here you know a bit more who to root for because you do have a lead character and an alien that's a bit subversive at first, where you don't know, I guess, who's your protagonist. But it never feels like anyone's life is safe, even from our lead. And it's just such a thrilling experience that the film has grown on me. I think when I first saw it, I was at an age where, or like, on the journey of my film consumption, that I wasn't really I guess easy on films that were older than like 10 years. And the more I watch the film, it really grows on me that it's this timeless classic that still works really, really well.
Well, you're introducing us to a strong candidate of one of the
Yeah.
best horror films of all time, as it's
Hmm.
by one of, I guess, the grandfathers of horror cinema, John
Yeah.
Carpenter. John Carpenter, for those of you who don't know, not only did The Thing, but is also very famous for, The Fog and Halloween. Personally, my favorite is either Big Trouble in Little China or Escape from New York. I absolutely
Hmm.
adore those two movies from, and again, The Thing and Halloween are two of the most fascinating horror films, especially as a body horror. That's what The
Yeah.
Thing really gets you as. It's kind of unique. I don't think
Yeah.
I had any body horror. I mean, you could kind of consider Annihilation on my list to be body horror, but The Thing really jumps into it. That a David Cronenberg uncomfortable esque horror that The Thing could be also
Yeah.
considered as. So
Exactly. Yeah.
great start. Your second favorite's a bit of a change in pace, if you don't
Yeah.
mind me saying. Look, for those of you who don't know, we have show notes, so we know exactly what's coming up in the episode. So I can
Hmm.
see all of Ewan's favorites, and it's easy to segue. Ewan's cheating here because
I'm
his
not okay.
second
Mm.
favorite horror film is a 3-in-1, I guess.
Hey, it's a threesome. More fun for everyone to be had. No, I'm definitely sticking with the first one in the series as my favorite.
Okay, okay.
Out of a total of 5 films that are in the series, I think other than four, all of them are really worth seeing. And I'm talking about Final Destination, a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine for years now. It's one of the first franchises that I just rewatched and rewatched over and over again. I remember like having sleepovers and then watching basically like three of them in one go, and then all of us being paranoid that like death is coming from us. There's signs the wind is coming in or whatever. I have like a deeper connection with Final Destination that just reminds me of watching them as a kid or a teenager. Yeah, I think I'd stick with the OG in the series, although I do think that 3 and 5 are really good as well. 4 is a bit of a misstep, and yeah, 2 also has great stuff in it. But the one that kicked it off in 2000, Final Destination, just a great entertaining film where if you don't know the concept of Final Destination, it's someone gets a precognition, I think that's what it's called, about all of them dying, and it's then they cheat death because this, I guess, supernatural thing has happened where they get to see the future, and then a bunch of people are saved from an accident, catastrophe, which in the first film is an airplane exploding. And then they get picked off one by one as death collects them in the order they would have died in the original accident, which is just it's so campy, but it works so well. And for years now, I've been waiting for the sixth film. I think we got an update a couple of months ago that it's in the works. I really, really pray for more Final Destination films because I think it probably is my favorite horror franchise overall. Nothing but love for Final Destination.
Nothing but love for Final Destination. I'll admit I do enjoy a Final Destination movie every
Yeah.
so often. It's just so much fun, and we talk about how when we watch a slasher film, or recently we covered the Halloween Ends film. We talk about iconic kills.
Mm-hmm.
Final Destination is just full of those. They really
True.
have
Yeah.
so much fun in making the deaths as over the top and as much of a Rube Goldberg machine as possible, of like a coin falling and then it makes an explosion somehow. So
Yeah.
Final Destination is really in the hearts of everyone
Mm-hmm.
as just really good, as you said, sleepover movie with all your mates, couple
Exactly.
bevies all round, having a couple drinks, watching a
Couple
good
brewskis.
old
Yeah.
spooky movies, especially in the time like it is right now, coming up to Halloween.
Yeah.
Ewan, you love a good spooky Final Destination, but as you
Mm-hmm.
said in your honorable mentions, you like
Yeah.
a good zombie flick as well.
I
Now, you
do.
made two very good honorable mentions: Shaun
Mm-hmm.
of the Dead and Train to Busan, two very different style zombie movies.
Yeah.
This one is again, I can see a bit of a thing happening here. You don't like traditional horror like zombie films. You like weird, quirky zombie films.
Yeah.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is One Cut of the Dead from 2017. That, by the way, just got remade earlier this year. A French remake that I did see in Gun, little flex there, and wasn't as good as the original, because how can it be? This one is one that I think you should go in knowing as little as possible. It's about a film crew shooting a zombie film, and all I can tell you that it has different acts, and you just gotta give it the time, even if you don't click with it in the first third of the film, because it leads to a really fulfilling cinematic experience where you might dread the first part of the film, but it just adds another layer with each chapter as you go into it, and just is really funny. This might be the funniest horror property, and no, I know that there's Shaun of the Dead. I might prefer this for the humor. I think it just works really well. There's a lot of like filmmaking things in there as well that I could relate to from being a bit on set myself. And I was like, this is just perfect for me. It's like the thing that a movie that creeps up on you if you give it the full time that it deserves. And again, if this is the first time you hearing of this, you haven't seen it, I really don't want to spoil the experience. I love this film. It's so much fun, and it's weird because I think also Final Destination has a comedic side to it. It's in addition to, I guess, getting 2 kills for each character, which is also another pleasant plus. You know, you you get double the content because they get to die twice. And in One Cut of the Dead, there's the meta layer of filmmaking and on zombie films as well in there that just makes it one of my favorite films of this genre by far.
Yeah, as I said, you're a zombie fanatic for zombie to the next level of zombie films. You know,
Brains.
you're not
Yeah.
28 Days Later or
No, I haven't seen those.
any of those classic horror zombie films, but
Yeah.
you like these modern zombie takes
I
on
do, yeah.
things. I guess zombies are so cemented in our brains as this one thing that when you see a movie that twists and makes it something different, you go, hell yeah, that's what I'm into.
Yeah.
Ewan, you talk about meta
Mhm.
humor
Yes.
in One Cut of the Dead, but if this segue can be of any hint to anybody who's ever seen a horror movie before, there's only one horror film that is so meta in what it's trying to be, but as a classic. And we talked about one of the grandfathers of horror films.
Mhm.
Ewan, would you like to introduce us to your fourth and final favorite horror film?
Yes, introductions to Wes Craven, rest in peace. The originator of the saga that gets my final spot here, Scream, with the original Scream. He's also the director who made The Hills Have Eyes and the original A Nightmare on Elm Street. So similar to John Carpenter being the godfather of horror as well with The Thing and Halloween, we tie in this list with Wes Craven, who has also 2 franchises to his name that are really iconic for horror as a whole. But I think I really needed to have a good slasher in here. And I don't know if I can think of a better slasher than Scream, which feels like, a reinvention of that genre after the 80s had an onslaught of just continuations of popular things of the late 70s, early 80s. And here you get a reimagined, at the time, very modern retake on the slasher genre that just works so well for me. And I think we recently rewatched it at the beginning of the year for the fifth film. And it just holds up. It just really works perfectly and keeps you on the edge of your seat, even to me on the rewatch, knowing who the killers are going to be. I just have a great time with it. Scream. Yeah, my final pick.
I guess it's a bit of a spoiler alert. I should have said at the start of this that
Yeah.
you might hear a spoiler here and there. Scream is just so much fun. When
Mhm.
I was in high school, one of our media study classes, we covered Scream for subverting expectations of a horror film, and it's so good at that to be one making jokes about horror films,
Mhm.
2, subverting those horror film expectations, and 3, being directed by, as I said, one of the like godfathers of horror cinema.
Yeah.
Wes Craven, Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, and obviously Scream to his name. The man knew what he was doing. The man knew
Yeah.
what he was doing. Personally, my order of this, I would probably put Scream, Thing, The Thing, Final Destination, and One Cut of the Dead in that order. My
Right.
personal, just because I haven't seen One Cut of the Dead. That's the only one I haven't seen
Oh,
out
okay.
of these films. I
Yeah.
know it's been on my watch list for a while. I just haven't been able
Yeah.
to get a hold of it. But looking at
Mhm.
my classic old Letterboxd account, it says it's on Shudder. Looks like my free trial of Shudder is about to tick
Yeah, pay off.
on for the next 7 days, and I might be just be
Hmm.
going on a horror binge because it's coming up to
Yeah.
that spooky season, and I cannot wait. All right, and that brings us to the end of the horror four favorites season of this little show. I want to give a quick shout out to the Quite Unsaid podcast. That is our main show on this channel where we discuss pretty much the latest and greatest in the cinema space, trailers, news, and we usually cover a big film on that podcast. Make sure if you're going to keep on watching this, subscribe to our channel and leave a like. They're kind of right next to each other, so hard to miss one if you're clicking the other.
Yeah.
And if you haven't already, drop down your 4 favorite horror films in the comments below. And whilst you're there, if you have any suggestions of what should be our next category, please
Oh
leave
yeah,
it there
definitely.
because
Yeah.
Ewan and I will start and finish the season, but
Hmm.
in between we'll try to get a couple guests on the show to again get a bit of diversity of just Ewan and I opinions. We want to hear what
Yeah.
everyone has to say because everyone's got a different perspective, right, Ewan?
Hmm. Exactly. I mean, also maybe while you're down there and suggesting and dropping a list for future topics, you could also suggest who we should have on the show. This year, this month, I really had some people who I already knew, but I'm feel free to suggest people outside of our circle as well. I think surprisingly to me, mine is one of the most modern lists on here when I'm usually the art house guy, which is so
Really?
surprising to me. Yeah, we had a lot of like classics in here because we had a lot of like film critics and curators on. But we'd love to have like people on who do film stuff on TikTok or other YouTubers. So feel free to suggest them as well. This is a lot of fun to do. A lot of films that I get to watch because of it. Yeah, hopefully we gave you some fodder. That's a German word there to watch this Halloween season and tune back in the next time. Like, sorry, I'm taking away your closing notes. You are hosting.
No. You've run the whole season. I've just come
Yeah.
here to close out the show with hopefully a bit of casual bevy drinking jazz.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for tuning in. And yeah, we'll see you next time on the Quiet on Set podcast or soon with the next season of Full Favorites.